The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This is perhaps the most loved and known chapters in all of the Bible. Many people have these as prayers on their walls, or they have heard this over and over. Some even have it as a tradition that this may even be their nighttime prayer. There's no doubt that Psalm 23 is worldwide famous. C.H. Spurgeon, a great Baptist pastor, once said that this is the pearl of all the Psalms. This is the jewel that sits on top of everything that we try to understand. This is sitting there, and it's for us to admire and appreciate and value. This psalm has been used to inspire peace, to calm broken hearts, even as the last prayer of the dying. This psalm is often used. It is used many times in funeral services. But this psalm is actually meant to be a timeless masterpiece, to be able to be used in all of life's situations. Just from the first 5 words here, the Lord is my shepherd. It catches our attention and immediately triggers that this is where we're going. Everyone knows that if you say those 5 words, the Lord is my shepherd, it's Psalm 23. We know this. And every time that those words are saying, the Lord is my shepherd, it's like we are immediately hanging on every single one of those words. Because we've heard them so often. Because we know that they have spoken to us in the past. And so there's so much wrapped up in just, the Lord is my shepherd. We can sit there and we immediately know, okay, there are certain parts of this psalm that speak directly to you. Which one is your favorite, by the way? Which part of Psalm 23? Everyone has a favorite part. Which part is yours? That's something that I would love to hear from you. But Psalm 23 is one of those that we really do need to appreciate more. Even though it is a timeless masterpiece, how often do we take for granted those timeless masterpieces in the rest of the world? Like we appreciate the Mona Lisa, right? But how often do we actually appreciate it? Like, yeah, it's just a nice painting, or a Van Gogh, or we appreciate some of Mozart's music, but how often do we actually sit there and appreciate it? To let it speak to us today like it's the first time that we've heard it or we've seen it. That's what I'm challenging you to do through the month of November, is to let Psalm 23 be new to you today. Yes, it is timeless, and we have heard these many times, but today is just as important for it to become a part of your life. Not just something in the past, not something to cover up and put away because it doesn't fit modern art, but to bring it out and to appreciate it. Just for example, just as to try to spark how fresh it can be to you today, I want you to realize something, and And it was hard for me not to go off and make this the part of the sermon, but this can be an appetizer for you for the rest of the series, perhaps. But the word Lord, we read it in the English and we know it's just Lord. In the Old Testament, there is many different translations for that word Lord. It is the name of God, but do you know that there are many names of God in the Old Testament? Just look at this list. Now, I realize you may not understand all these names, but these names are the ones that are, if not directly referred to in Psalm 23, they are referenced. They are understood as part of Psalm 23. I highlighted a few of them. Jehovah Rapha means the Lord is my shepherd. That's right there, verse 1. Jehovah Jireh, he will provide. The Lord is my provider. Right there in Psalm 23. We got Jehovah Shalom, my peace. We got Jehovah Rapha, my healer. Jehovah Etzer, that's the bottom one there, the E-Z-E-R, it's actually pronounced Etzer. The Lord is my help. Now, there's a lot more in there, but these names of God actually start us off. The Lord is my shepherd. The Lord is the focus. The different names of God reveal the different way he's providing for us. He's caring for us. He loves us. And it's revealed through his name, the Lord. God Almighty is my shepherd. He is the one. Now, it starts off, and David writes this psalm. It actually is. David did not write all of the Psalms. I don't know if you know this from Sunday school, but David didn't write all of them, but he wrote majority of them. So we give credit to David. Most likely it was actually Solomon who compiled all of these together into one collection. But David wrote this one. And it's kind of fitting David would write this one because David was a shepherd. And he understood the role of a shepherd. He understood the life of a shepherd. And as he was sitting there out in the middle of the wilderness, in the Middle East, watching over his flock, caring for them, protecting them, he's sitting there thinking, he's not thinking, what a crappy job this is. What a horrible job I have. I have to watch sheep. I have to protect them from themselves. Which we'll get there and understand a little bit more about sheep. But David isn't sitting there saying, woe is me, I've got one of the worst jobs in all of society, because they were viewed as some of the lowest. Instead, he's sitting there thinking, you know what? This is a lot like what God does for us. That God leads us to the places he wants us, yet we are the ones that keep trying to go somewhere else. He's the one protecting us from things we don't even know are out to get us. And so when he starts off and says, the Lord is my shepherd, he says, I believe in a God who actually cares for me. That's how this psalm starts off. The Lord is my shepherd. I know that there is a personal God in heaven, creator of all things, that knows and loves me. Do you know that God? God knows you, but do you actually know that the Lord is your shepherd? The Lord is your personal shepherd. But not only does David say, the Lord is my shepherd, he then says, I shall not want. I have everything I need in my God. If we truly understood that, that would change the way we live our lives, wouldn't it? If we actually believe that God was all that we needed in our life, it would change the way we wake up in the morning. How many of you wake up and I need that cup of coffee, or for Connie, cup of tea? How many of us wake up and say, I need to eat first, don't talk to me before I eat? If we woke up and says, you know what? All I need right now is God. And then we go through our day. I need to get here. I need to do this. I need to talk to this person. And instead we just said, you know, right now, all I need is God. Now, that's not to say that you get to slack on all those other things and become, just one of those people that sit at home and God's all that I need. No. But to say, really, what's important in this moment is what God has for me. He may speak to me through that appointment. He may provide for me that parking spot that I need. And it's not always going to be the closest one to the store. Sometimes I've realized when I pray that God would give me a parking spot and he puts me way out there in the parking lot, that's exactly where God wants me, because he wants to talk to me all the way into the store. And perhaps change my priorities once I get into that store. But God is all that we need. It's very interesting that this is how Psalm 23 starts off, is the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. I have everything I need in God. I believe in a God who cares about me, and so I don't want anything. I'm not going to beg or need to have something for my life to be fulfilled, because God fulfills all of what I need in my life. That would even change the way that we treat our spouses, because so many people put pressure on their spouse to be what they need. If we were to say, instead of, I need my husband to do this, or I need my wife to do this, we were to understand the Lord is all that I need. Instead of putting the pressure on our kids, I need them to live up to this expectation. I need them to do this. I want them to be this kind of person. And we were to come back and say, the Lord is all I need. My kids, I've been entrusted with them, but they're God's first. So God needs to be the one that directs them, that guides them. I don't need to be that. I can be a source of comfort and advice to them, but God needs to be their shepherd. I don't need to step in and try to tell them what to do. I'm not their shepherd. God is. It changes the way we do everything. But it brings up an interesting question. What is it that you need for a satisfactory life? What is on your list? Maybe you have a top 2 or 3 things, or maybe you have a top 10 list that you need these many things or these things to happen for your life to be satisfied, for you to be content with where you're at in life. What is it on your list? That's an interesting question if we were to ask the population. If we were to poll all the people we know, that question would bring up interesting answers. Do we need more money to be satisfied? Do we need a better job? Do we need our family to behave? I know holiday season's coming up, and it brings a lot of anxious thoughts for people because we get our families in one place all at the same time. And putting that many people with those strong personalities in one room, even for just a little bit, can bring up some interesting scenarios, can't they? But what do we need to have a satisfied life? There is actually no consensus with man. With human beings, we have no clear answer of what it means to have a satisfied life. What is it for you to be content? Can we be like David and say, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want"? I am content with just the fact that God loves me. If God is really all we need, then he promises to provide everything else. That God will supply all of our needs according to his riches and his timing. God will give us what we need if we just acknowledge that God is what we need. But I love the way that this psalm actually plays out. Because it goes through a list here, and it goes through different scenarios, but it talks about things we don't need to worry about if we actually believe that God is our shepherd. That if the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. These are the things that we don't need to worry about. These are the things that basically David is saying, I shall not lack these things. I have everything I need in my God, and these are the things he provides. So this is where I want to spend most of our time. Because we have a God who cares, we can say, I shall not lack rest. I love that. Verse 2, he makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. Philip Keller is a pastor and an author who was also a shepherd. He spent a good part of his early years as actually being a shepherd. And so he wrote a book called The Shepherd's Look at Psalm 23. From his own personal experiences, he applied what he knew from being a shepherd to what was being written in Psalm 23. And so he said this. He said, it's almost impossible for sheep to be made to lie down unless 4 requirements are met every single time. They need to be free from all fear. They need to be free from all conflict. They need to be free from all parasites. And they need to be free from hunger. In order for sheep to lie down, they need to have those 4 needs met every time. Keller notes that a good shepherd provides trust, and he provides peace and deliverance, and he brings his sheep to the pasture to where they could rest. I know we just got an extra hour of sleep last night. Do you feel rested? Groans is not an answer, by the way, people. How many of you, raise a hand, actually feel more rested today? Okay, a few. How many of you are still exhausted, even with an extra hour of sleep? Okay, yeah. There's more exhaustion in the room than rest. Interesting. If the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not lack rest. Now, I'm on the side that I still feel exhausted, even though I got an extra hour of sleep. So I know this is for me. You guys just may be getting, you get to hear God talk to me right now, that I need to rest. So what is it that I'm lacking in life? Do I have fear that's keeping me awake and not letting me rest in knowing that God is my God, that the Lord is my shepherd? Do I have conflict that I need to have resolved because I can't rest because this conflict is keeping me up? Maybe, and I'm not talking about physical parasites, but we may have emotional or mental parasites that are bugging us and keeping us awake and not letting us rest and trust in God. How many of us are hungry? All right, we have a junior high boy who's really, really hungry. And a high school boy, of course. He was asleep right then, but, we have two boys who are very hungry. And the closer we get to lunch, the more hungry everyone else will get too. But how much do we hunger for other things? Maybe we hunger for love, for attention. Maybe we hunger for, you can fill in the blank. We hunger for different things. This isn't necessarily talking about physical hunger, but we have things that our soul needs that we need in order to rest. And when we say, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, we are saying, I shall not lack rest, because God takes care of all those things. My God will provide for all of my needs. So I'm going to trust in him, and I'm just going to learn to rest. Now I got to tell you, I do this occasionally. I go out on a spiritual fast day for me. And what this means is I go out and I find different ways to connect with God. One day I was out and I was taking the whole day and I was just walking in the national forest. And I decided, you know what would be a really good idea? It's about mid-afternoon. I'm going to stop and take a nap. Now, I didn't think about this. I'm in a national forest where there are actually predators out there, and I'm laying down in this green meadow out in the open, just sitting there on the ground, laying down. Now, it did not, after I woke up, I realized that probably wasn't the smartest idea. But that 20-minute nap actually was one of the best naps I've ever had. Because I'd learned all that morning to trust God with everything else I needed. I could just rest. Now, I should have probably leaned up against a tree or been somewhere not out in the open like that, but that's beside the point. You can talk to me about the safety aspects of being out in the woods later, and I'll listen. But that nap where I learned to rest that afternoon, in knowing that my God is my shepherd. But when we say this, we're saying, I shall not lack rest. We also shall not lack life. Now, in here, in Psalm 23, he says, he restores my soul. That can have a spiritual expression. He restores my soul. And we can, many pastors and many Sunday school teachers and Bible leaders, they go to the spiritual side here, that he restores my soul, that when we accept Jesus Christ, he takes our soul that is basically dead because of sin and he brings it to life. He restores it to the way that it was meant to be, that we are supposed to have a connection, a free avenue of communication with our God. He restores us to that right relationship. But actually, when we're reading Psalm 23 in the original language, the term here is actually, he restores my health. He restores my life, the source of my life. So he's actually talking more about the physical aspect of this. Now I know that we are in a fallen world and many of us are suffering with disease and we have loved ones who are going through hard times physically. And I've heard so many of you actually voice concern over the health of your loved ones or even yourself. And I wish I could say that if you believe in God, your health will be restored completely. I wish that was the case. I am so heartbroken with you over health concerns. But David here is talking about that even though our health may be failing, our soul, the source of our life, is still intact. One of the biggest difference I've seen as I've walked through death with people, I've been by their side as they're passing with those health concerns. Many times I've seen them go through the treatments, and the difference I see, this is my own personal experience, and many people have confirmed the same thing, but the difference is when you're sitting beside a believer versus a non-believer in those situations, there's a drastic difference. Yes, their health may be failing. Their life, their physical life may be ending. But the source of life is not gone from that person. Meaning this, that as they're passing from this life to the next, they are still just as much alive in those final days as they were when their health was perfect. Because their source of life is God. He has given them eternal life. So they know that the end of this physical life is the end of a chapter, but it's not the end of the story. He restores my soul. He restores my life. You know, going back to this, comparing this, the Lord is my shepherd, and comparing this to sheep. Sheep are known for getting themselves into bad situations. One of the common ones, especially for those shepherds who let them actually out into the wilderness or into the forest or into the great unknown, shall we say, not just into a pasture, not into a fenced-in area, but those who take them out into the wild, take their flock out there, the sheep will find a place to lay down. They will find a little depression in the ground, or maybe a little hole that has been dug, or a ravine, and they will lay down there and they will get comfortable, and then they'll start squirming a little bit, and then they will flip themselves upside down. And once they get themselves in that bad situation, they are stuck. There is no way for them to get themselves out of that situation. The only one who can come to save them is the shepherd. How many times do we get ourselves into bad situations? You know what's interesting about the sheep that are in that situation? They thought they were going to find a place to rest, but instead they've got themselves into a bad situation, got themselves turned upside down, and what they do is they panic, and it actually leads to an earlier death for them. So unless the shepherd is paying attention and can come to them quickly to turn them right side up, to get them oriented back to the way life should be, those things can get worse. But when we have the Lord as our shepherd, He reorients our life back to Him. He restores our soul. He gets us into the position to where the only thing that matters is our shepherd. The only one who can restore our health, the only one who can restore our life is the Lord. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not lack life. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not lack guidance. Interesting. Many people have a lot of questions about what they should do with their life. Should I take this job? Should I do this with my retirement? Should I make this decision? You know, and we go through a lot of scenarios. If the Lord is my shepherd, and I truly see Him as my shepherd, my provider, then He is also the one who guides me. David says, He leads me beside the still waters. He leads me on the path of righteousness for His name's sake. The Lord is our guidance. He is our guide. He is the one who directs us. You know, the common misconception is that sheep are just dumb. Actually, they're very intelligent. They're just foolish. Because when they get something in their mind, they are stuck on that thought until they either accomplish what it is they think they were going to do, or they die trying. Now, I have friends who are shepherds, and one of them, I was actually working with this friend, and he had this sheep that was stuck, just had it fixed in their mind that they were going to go through any electric fence that was put up. And so we would fix the fence, we'd put it up, we had it very powerful. This sheep would keep going at the fence until it broke again, or keep trying to jump over. And what's interesting is it was this one sheep, but yet all the rest of the flock would follow it, would join in on the same foolish endeavor until they were all dead, or until they all got through that fence. How often do we do the same thing, though? We get in our head, this is what I'm going to do with my life. This is where I'm going to go. This is how I'm going to live. And we keep pushing on. And God's saying, that's not the way I want you to go. That's not where the green pasture is. That's not where the still waters, where you'll be comfortable, where you'll be able to rest. If you go through that fence, if you go through that obstacle, if you keep trying your way, it's going to lead to danger, disaster, possibly even death. I find it very interesting that Isaiah 53:6 says, all we like sheep have gone astray. We can be just as foolish as sheep are. Oh yes, we have intelligence. God gave us a brain. Sheep are actually pretty smart when you understand. They can recognize quite a few individual faces. They respond to emotions of people around them. They're very intelligent in a lot of different ways. But on this one fact, they keep getting in their head what they think they should do, and it can kill them. And Isaiah says, we like sheep do the same thing. We get in our head what we think we need to do. Instead of letting God be our shepherd, and instead of letting God be our guide, God direct our life, we think we know how to do it better. They are intelligent, they form deep bonds, sheep protect each other, but they have the herd mentality, and so do we. I shall not lack guidance. Then he says, I shall not lack safety. I love this. I will fear no evil, for you are with me. You know, sheep in certain areas, some sheep grow up and live without threat of predators or disasters or anything that is a threat to them. They live without it. They're very few in the world, but there are some places that they live without fear at all. And those sheep go about and they do crazy stuff. But we know that there are many things out there that are actually a threat to us in this lifetime. There's many things that we actually naturally fear. But yet, if we go back to the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not lack safety. I don't have to be afraid. I don't have to fear. This passage is often used as a source of comfort, especially for the dying. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. So, It's interesting because many people, the one thing they fear the most is death. They fear dying. And it says, I have safety in the Lord is my shepherd. I don't have to fear death. But there are many other things that we also fear. It's very interesting that the imagery here is that the valley of the shadow of death, and we're going to spend a week on talking about this more in depth, but particularly for this message, this valley, going back to my nap, was, you think about it, it's a very peaceful, very calm place, but yet it is probably the worst place, the greatest danger to lay down and just sit there. But we walk through the valley of the death, the shadow of death. It's very interesting that the greatest threat to a sheep is actually in the valley. They have the most predators there. There's the danger of floods coming in. And if you've ever lived in a place that has those flash floods, those can be very deadly to sheep. The better place, the safer place is up on the mountainside for them. So, God never promises us a tranquil life, a peaceful, calm life. What he does promise us is that he will be with us. He will never leave us or forsake us. Even though we may be in the shadows of death or in the deepest valley we've ever been in, God is there with us. He is our safety. We need a personal closeness to God in life's valleys. David makes an interesting transition right here, and I want to point this out. In the earlier verses, the Lord is my shepherd. He makes me. He leads me. He restores me for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and staff comfort me. You prepare a table before me. You anoint me. He switches from the Lord, he does all of this. And all of a sudden, in the valley of the shadow of death, Lord, you are with me. Your rod and staff comfort me. There's a personal connection, a personal closeness that in the midst of the valley is when we need to be the closest to our God. When we need to have that personal connection. We could keep going and talk about how God provides us with provisions, that God gives us an eternal home. But I want to direct I want to use this time, the rest of this time, to make a direct connection between Psalm 23 and John 10. It was read during our worship service, but these verses, the Lord is my shepherd, and then Jesus specifically says, I am the good shepherd. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd gives his life for the sheep. He lays it down. The good shepherd knows the sheep, and the sheep know the shepherd. As comforting as Psalm 23 is for so many, John 10 needs to be even more encouragement, even more comfort to those who believe. This is not an impersonal God who just says, I believe there's a God who gives me those things. Now that's consumer mentality still. God gives me. Instead, we shift to the Lord is my shepherd. I know him personally. He is close to me. He is the one who is with me. It's not that he gives me anything, but that he is there when we need him. He's exactly what we need right when we need it. There's a special kind of bond between a shepherd and his sheep, though. The shepherd knows the different cries of the flock, the different bleats of the lamb, the different, yes, thank you, bah. He knows each sheep and their different sounds. He can identify each individually. You know, when I was with that friend who was the shepherd, I walked out there and I was like, they all look like sheep. And he could go, oh no, that one's, and called them by name, pointed them out, and told me all about their different personalities. I'm like, don't they just sit there and eat grass all day long? Lie down and then make a lot of noise? Because that's all that I've experienced. As I'm not a shepherd, but when I'm around sheep, that's what I've experienced. And he's like, no, they each have their own personalities, their own uniqueness. This one over here does little things and it's hilarious. It's like he's trying to make a joke out of stuff. And this one over here, yes, this one is a little bit of a worrier, but you know, it's kind of interesting because I know exactly how to calm this one down. This one's hungry all the time, so we just make sure that we help him watch his diet a little bit. But the shepherd knows not just their personality, but the sheep also know the shepherd. They don't know the sheep don't know just the shepherd by intellect. Like, oh yeah, that's our shepherd. They don't even know the shepherd necessarily by sight. It's very interesting. When I've been around with those sheep and the shepherds, as soon as they walk onto the property, sometimes the sheep aren't even anywhere close. They haven't made eye contact with the shepherd, but they just sense the presence of the shepherd. They can sense the different smell of the shepherd or the different calmness that the shepherd brings. They hear the footsteps and can identify the shepherd by the footsteps. The sheep have different things that they have identified, and they know exactly when the shepherd shows up. And the reaction of the shepherd showing up rather than just some random person is very interesting. Because when I show up, even when I was there to maybe feed them while he was on vacation or something, I would show up and yeah, they would just be like, yeah, give me food. But when he was there, when I would walk with him, all of a sudden those sheep were wanting to be around him all the time. As we walked through the pasture, those sheep were right by him a lot of the times. Sometimes they were annoying because they were just, they wanted attention. But the shepherd had patience with them, compassion for them. Jesus is our shepherd. He is the good shepherd. He knows each of us and loves us. But we need to develop a closeness to him that we could tell when Jesus is here. When you walk into this room, even though we know that God is not confined, God can be everywhere all at once, and God has promised to be here with us, we should have a different reaction when Jesus is in this room than just any other day. We should be able to walk into someone's home and be able to tell, this is where Jesus is right now. In this moment, God is with us. He is our shepherd. We should have a different reaction, a different level of trust. We shouldn't lack for anything in that moment. That's what Psalms 23 is pointing us to. That we need to know that we will not lack what we need because Jesus is our shepherd. So, what is it that you think you need today? What is it on the top of your list of what you need to be satisfied or to be at peace right now? The sheep had those 4 requirements. We may need something to be satisfied or to be addressed before we can rest. But God has promised to do that. He is our shepherd. What do you need God to provide for you right now so that you could just be close to the shepherd? In this time in your life, whatever valley you're going through, draw closer to God and don't worry about the threat. Go through this valley closer to the shepherd because he loves you and knows you.
Thank you for joining us for worship today. I hope and pray that God has challenged or inspired you through this message. And if he has, please leave a comment or send us an email and let us know. Also, you could do those same things to let us know if there's any prayer requests you have that we could join you in prayer for. Thank you again for watching. Hope to see you again soon. God bless you.